VK3FS, VK3IE here, about a 20 overnight at the moment. So quite a good signal coming across town using the ICOM 905.
In Australia, the 5.7 GHz amateur band is 200 MHz of microwave radio spectrum between 5.65 GHz and 5.85 GHz.
So a good signal coming over to St Albans. VK3FS, VK3IE, over.
Shared with Wi-Fi globally, the 6 cm band is a line-of-sight band for wideband communications, such as ATV, as well as narrowband use like point-to-point SSB communications.
Yes, VFS3KD, oh yeah, great signals, and well, the panel antennas is just in moderate gain. I'm not sure what the gain is, probably about, 15 dB perhaps.
Unlike the lower 2.4 GHz Wi-Fi saturated band, the 5.7 GHz band doesn't seem to suffer from interference anywhere near as much. A good noise blanker should solve most, if not all, Wi-Fi interference on 6 centimetres.
On my IC905 microwave system, and which is what I'm transmitting to at the moment.
The introduction of the ICOM IC905 is certain to add some interest in this band. Its 2-watt output is nice, but some transverters, such as those made by Coon, only have 250 milliwatts. This is just fine for communications over 100 kilometres or so line of sight. But a little more power is the difference between a contact and an armchair contact. Up until recently, power amps on this band were the realm of drone range extenders. Even devices that took milliwatts to watts were few and far between. So imagine the surprise when, buried in an email from SG Laboratory, a line about a 10-watt 5.7 gig PA found its way to my inbox. It didn't go unnoticed, so Rob, VK3KRD and I are now using these amps. If you're keen to know more, stick around and you'll see 2 builds using this new SG Lab 10-watt amp. This is the SG Laboratory 6 cm 10-watt power amp. Built into an 82 by 72 by 22 mm machined aluminium case, this amplifier outputs 10 watts minimum, but typically 11 to 12 watts, with an input drive of 10 to 12 milliwatts. The maximum input power is 25 milliwatts. It has a bandwidth of 5.65 to 5.85 GHz and needs a little over 1 amp at 28 volts. The active component is the Cree Wolfspeed CG2H410F. It's a gallium nitride high electron mobility transistor, or HEMT, that works up to 8 GHz. These chips offer high efficiency, high gain and wide bandwidth capabilities, making them ideal for linear amplifiers. The amp has monitor outputs for input power, as well as forward and reverse output power from an output directional coupler. It has an RF sense or RF Vox always active with less than a 1 milliwatt threshold. The PTT can also be activated with a ground connection. I have a Coon 6 cm transverter built into an aluminium enclosure. There was no way I could fit the PA into the existing box, so I chose to add another box to the kit and make it detachable so it's easy to revert to 250 milliwatts or trying other amplifiers. This amp runs exceptionally cool, so mounting the amp directly to the enclosure works just fine. In fact, the transverter runs warmer than the PA. I chose to mount a 10 amp 28 volt DC to DC converter in the box with the PA. This means when I'm in the field, I only need a 12 volt supply. Using some 5-pin mic plugs, I soldered up an umbilical cord to go between the boxes. This cable carries DC as well as plus 12 volts from the mini-kit sequencer to enable the PA on transmit. The 28 volts can be left continuously on the amplifier. To reduce the 250 milliwatts to the required drive of 12 milliwatts, I used a 13 dB attenuator. Finally, to invert the 12-volt sequencer to 0 volts to engage the PA, I used a simple circuit using a 2N3904 to pull the PA's PTT to ground. I also added a TX LED. And it all sits in this inline heat shrink cable. This switching circuit, along with more information, can be found on the 3fs.net.au website. The ammeter on the front case monitors the current drawn on the 28-volt supply line. The PA works a treat, providing saturating signals over 70 kilometres away, even through some local trees.
Yeah, good signal, 5 and 9 doing about 60, I think it's about 63 kilometres across the distance, so working well on 57610, VK3FS, VK3IE.
Over the other side of Port Phillip Bay, an hour and a half by car and 70 kilometres line of sight, is Rob, VK3KRD. Rob has built his PA into his homemade 6cm transverter. He kindly gave us a tour of his masterpiece that is literally built onto a $2 kitchen breadboard from the local supermarket.
So here under this box here is the 104 meg crystal with a mini kit's oscillator, which has an output of about 624 megs. And that's been placed in a plastic box, and it has foam around it, as you can see, to try and stabilise it. And it comes out of here at 624 megs, and then comes along here, goes into another multiplier board, it's a mini kit's multiplier board with a pipe cap filter, comes out of there, and it's further amplified across here through another stage there, so it's amplified again, and then it comes up into this splitter. So this splits the 5,616 megs into the receiver mixer, which is this piece of waveguide here. So it's a waveguide, homebrew waveguide mixer. The local isolator signal comes in here, hits the diode, and is then mixes with the incoming signal into this waveguide. Transmit wise, we have a commercial C-band mixer here. So the 5616 comes in here, and then we use 144.1 2 metre to mix with the 5616 to step us up to 5760. So you get 144 in here, 5616 there, you add the 144 to the 5616, and then you get 5760 coming out of here. So the 5760 then goes through this pipe cap filter to filter the local oscillator, and then it goes through here into the SG Labs power amplifier. It's great to have an amplifier which has quite high gain at microwave frequencies. So then out of the SG Labs it comes through here into the microwave changeover relay, which switches between transmit and receive. Now we're also using LDF 450, so you can get away with about 10 metres of LDF 450 on transmit, and that runs up to a fiberglass parabolic dish with a piece of waveguide feed. In fact, a horn antenna, you can make a fairly high gain one yourself out of some tin plate, which you would make it larger than this, of course. And then when you go to transmit, you get the blue transmit line, and then you have your padding.
It's good to see that homebrew is still alive and well in this age of off-the-shelf black boxes. At the time of making this video, the SG Lab 10-watt 6cm PA is €384, plus shipping. So if your 5.7 GHz station needs a little more oomph, then be sure to give this 10-watt amp some consideration.
Had quite a bit of success to contact on both days, and more to come. And probably some further improvements as well. 3FS, 3KRD on 5760. I think it's going to be quite visible all day. Anyway, we'll see how things are holding up. 3FS, 3KRD.
The 144 meg